Phoenix Rising by Michael Anastas. Downstairs, on the 20th basement floor, Misty was letting Brendan's Pokemon know her opinion. "If you think I'm just gonna sit here and die, then all of you can burn in hell!" Sarah Angel walked up to their cages and gently placed her hands against the bars of Misty's cage. "It pains me to say this, but our masters will not wait for you to die. They have evil thoughts in mind. The door in the corner burst off its hinges.
"I'll thank you not to talk to the meat!"
shouted the leech of all form of muck as he fell through the door in a single pile. Brock sat up and banged his head against the top of the cage. "Meat?" he asked while rubbing his head.
"That's right!"
Leech performed one of his special attacks, Harden, which allowed him to shape his body into a humanoid form, his big head at the center.
"The master so stated that we are to dispose of you!"
He laughed as he let a little slab of himself fall to the ground, which he shaped into, out of all things, a chef's hat. Darius belched and leaned over. Cassie threw up in the corner.
"Ha ha!"
said the leech giddily.
"I'm starting to enjoy the master's change."
"It's because you're too loyal," whispered Sarah Angel. "You're too much like him." Leech pointed one green drooping finger at Sarah Angel as he put on the hat.
"Nobody asked you anything! Your job is to sit there and take orders when they're given!"
If something happened, our friends failed to notice it, but Leech walked past Sarah Angel and extended his ear.
"Crap! You didn't fight them to your full extent like the master required!"
He turned and pointed at Sarah Angel.
"I'll take care of them this time, but the master will be very displeased with you when he finds out how foolish a job you have done."
He clenched his fists and ran out the closest door. Sarah Angel took a deep breath and came down to rest across from the cages. "Sarah Angel," said Misty, "it's clear that you're not evil as they are. Come with us. Join us." Sarah Angel closed her eyes and shook her head. "I cannot. Not as long as the master has dominance over me. I must obey every command I am given by him and his Pokemon." Brock gripped the bars. "What were you ordered to do right now?" "To wait for an order." Misty smiled. "So if we were to break out of here, you wouldn't be forced to try and stop us?" "You will never get out of there. The bars which hold you in are aligned with diamonds." "But if we could get out of here, you wouldn't have to stop us?" "No." Darius smiled. "Perfect." He took a Pokeball and waved it lightly at Sarah Angel. "Because the master forgot to take away our Pokemon." The four of us had split up and gone down corridors which we knew to end in the same place, from what we had learned from Jesse earlier. Just ahead of the door, which would have brought Andrew to the bottom floor, Leech burst through. "Never thought I'd see a leech here," he said, as he pulled a Pokeball from his belt. He stopped short. "What's with the hat? Bible sent a fat Italian after me?" Bubbles peeked through Leech's skin.
"You'll regret that!"
A massive flab of his body came down on the ground before him, narrowly missing as Andrew sailed through the air and landed solidly on his feet halfway down the corridor. Then he released his Pokeball. "Halberdier, go!" The Pokeball slid off his wrist, and Halberdier materialized before him. "Halberdier, separate!" Halberdier's level 165 attack, in which he drives his 4 spears into his opponent and stretches him out as far as he can. It's a devastating move, especially against shapeshifters. This time, however, it did close to nothing.
"This isn't even worth the effort!"
shouted Leech as he expanded himself beyond Halberdier's reach. Then, just when Halberdier was going to get crushed under Leech's weight, Andrew recalled Halberdier into a regular Pokeball. Leech fell to the ground, through the ground, and mixed in with the salt water. "That was too easy," said Andrew. "Are these his best Pokemon?" At the same time, Merlin encountered the very Pokemon he had killed less than an hour ago. Serpentor crashed through the floor and swiped at Merlin with its regenerated scythe tail, barely missing. "How many times do we have to kill you?" Merlin shouted as he drew his sword. The tail came down again, and Merlin narrowly escaped the falling debris which came down from the ceiling. "Wanna play with swords, do you?" He held his blade before him. "I'm game." Serpentor lifted his tail and struck the ground behind him, barely penetrating the metal floor. As it retracted its tail, the floor came up with it. The steel squeaked as it curved upward, blocking the combatants' view of each other. The steel continued to twist and curve at a rapid pace, and all Merlin could do was run to the other end of the corridor. He came to the door and struggled to open it, and just before he brought out his sword, the metal curved over him. Serpentor so believed that Merlin had been suffocated, but as he turned his back, Merlin leapt over the massive curl of steel and sunk his sword deep into Serpentor's head. He fell lifeless into the water, and his floating body sufficed as an excellent bridge. The four of us arrived in the main reactor, the prison in which the others were kept, just as Darius's Undermax pulled the bars apart. Darius stepped out and arched his back. "Thank God you're alive," he grunted. Ash helped Misty to her feet. "I guess this means you couldn't find the source." "The source of the hurricane?" All eyes turned to the figure in the shadows. "I am the source," said Sir Angel. "I created it at my master's request. She stopped short. "You created the hurricane?" asked Andrew. "So you could also stop it, right?" No, stuttered Sir Angel. I cannot stop it until his mission is complete." Cassie stepped forward. "Mission?" "Yes. When I asked what it was for, my master so stated that... Oh my." "Well," said Ash, "what did he say?" Sir Angel looked pale. "That it was to aid in the fulfillment of 2 older requests. 2 people who wanted to be reunited with lost kin." Merlin's eyes widened. "Did he say who?" "You." The voice came from behind them, and Merlin had his sword drawn before the figure appeared. "This is the welcome you would give your father?" he asked sarcastically. "I've told you before!" Merlin shouted. "My father is dead!" "Do you have proof?" Merlin was silent. "No, you have only heard that I was lost at sea. Well, Merlin, I would have died, but before I was swept into the waters, I made a wish." Merlin held his sword before him. "That I would die? Is that why you tried to kill me?" "No, that I would be reunited with my family. I would have given my soul for that." Merlin was silent. "A month later, your mother heard that I had been lost at sea, and that you received a letter from the hospital that she died of a broken heart. But you never saw her body, Merlin. You couldn't attend her wake, and arrived hours late for her funeral. Of course, you couldn't attend her wake, because you were never informed that she was having one." Merlin's sword began to tremble in his hand. "But there was no wake, and the casket which was lowered into the ground at her funeral was empty. Don't you see, Merlin? Your mother never died. We were reunited." Merlin's sword stopped trembling. "You said you wanted to be reunited with your family. Did you not think of me as a member?" "We loved you dearly," said his father, "but it was your mother's request that you do something with your life. She wanted you to give the greatest honor to the name of Durai." He was silent. "And so, the wraiths left you out of the trade, and in turn, aided you in the construction of the Phoenix Gem. It is because of the wraiths that you have meaning to your life. Had it not been for them, you would never even have thought of the next step." Merlin's sword clattered to the floor. "Your mother is waiting," said his father with a smile. "It's not too late to come back." "Never!" Ash sailed through the air, sword ablaze, and brought fire down on the ground before them. "You are minions of Wraith, and not to be trusted!" Merlin snapped out of his trance and bent down to his sword. "No! It cannot end this way!" His father drew his sword, blackened it in flame, and aimed at Merlin. The fireball missed Merlin, but managed to send his sword flying across the floor. Darius and Andrew pulled out their Pokeballs, but in a wave of the minion's hand, they were thrown against the wall. "You cannot fight us!" shouted the minion. "If you will not aid us, then I must destroy you. This was your decision, and you will live with it for all eternity!" He swung his sword at Merlin, and the black sphere of fire skimmed Merlin's sleeve as he dodged to the right. "Merlin, catch!" Ash threw his sword in Merlin's direction, which he caught in his left hand. At the same time, the minion launched a fireball in Merlin's direction, which struck the stone dead on. Merlin focused his telepathic energy on the flame, and it spread through his sword, all the way to the tip of the blade. That shouldn't have been possible," said the minion, "but it was a foolish mistake." There was a flash of light, and when the element of darkness came back, the minion stood over the fallen Merlin Durai. His sword hovered in the air, ready to strike. "You could have had it all," said the minion. But you were a fool, and now you shall pay the price. Goodbye, my son." He rose his sword in the air and stopped short. "Huh?" Sare Angel held her hand before her, and a stream of light shot out, sending the minion flying against the wall. He slid down to the floor and stumbled to his feet, staring into Sare Angel's hateful eyes. "But you can't!" "Watch me." She struck him again, and the dent his crashing body created in the steel frame had to have been a foot deep. "Sare Angel, I command you to stop!" Sare Angel's hands fell down before her sides, and her master appeared before her. "What is the meaning of this?" he shouted at her. "You were not ordered to attack Durai. You are aware of what the consequences of your actions are, correct?" "Yes, master." "Then I will give you one last chance to repair what you have broken. You know what I want, do you not?" Sare Angel nodded. "I await your command." There was a loud gunshot, and a hole appeared in the back of Bible's head. He fell lifeless to the ground, and I put my gun back in its holster. What could I say? Boy, that felt good. "This is intolerable! By Gehenna, how could this happen? She made a decision of her own! No! What is happening?" "Calm down. This won't improve if we simply sit here bickering. We must do something, and fast. Are you volunteering? Do I have a choice?" Silence. "No. If we are to live, then something must be done."